On behalf of Sawmill River Audubon, I'm Ann Swain, Executive Director, and I'm going to do a quick short intro and then pass our gathering on to our president, Valerie Lyle. So welcome tonight. We have a lot of fun things lined up for you tonight. In addition to our keynote speaker, who will be joining us midway through, David Ringer, the Chief Network Officer from National Audubon, Val Lyle is going to do an intro for you, much like we do at our annual dinners. We'll have visuals to go along with a look back at the last 18 months since we last gathered at our dinner in April 2019. Throughout the program tonight, we'll have some volunteer videos, short pieces, 1-2 minutes, some of our volunteers speaking. And then another big highlight of our gathering together here is our Larry Light Youth Scholarship students. Adam Venson and Eric Brodsky are with us. And after Val speaks, and we have a few short items, they're each going to present a short program about their experiences at Audubon Youth Birding Camps. And then at the end, as we turn the corner and wrap, we have a couple of very fun things for you. We have very bad bird pictures, which some of our birders are going to work together with out loud to figure out what they are. They come with a better picture of the same bird once we get stumped or identify it, and you're welcome to play along with that. We'll have the drawing for our 2020 birding quilt raffle, and then we'll have our usual sequence that we do at all our dinners, which is just a 4-minute multimedia with pictures from all of the last 18 months. And many of you will recognize familiar faces in that. Faces and places, we call it. So pictures of some of the habitats we've been with too. All right. So with that, let's get started with our 2020 community gathering. It's my pleasure to introduce Valerie Lyle, who is the president of Sawmill River Audubon. And she will be talking with us tonight about connecting people with nature.
Thanks, Ann. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today as Sawmill River Audubon celebrates the past many months of connecting people with nature in these very challenging times. It's good to see so many familiar faces, though I wish we could gather together in person. Given the turbulence and uncertainty of the times, I want to reassure you that Sawmill River Audubon is not only surviving, but thriving. I'll start by reviewing some business information, followed by a recap of our activities during the past 18 months. Our 2019 annual fund drive totaled over $44,000, more than in any prior year. Not knowing what impact to expect from the pandemic, we delayed our 2020 fund drive by a month. The results were beyond anyone's expectations. Annual fund drive donations received in 2020 through September totaled $50,000. Another $26,000 was received from a generous anonymous donor, who through the end of this year will continue to match all 2020 increases in donations compared to 2019. Our additional annual income sources come from birdseed sales, education programming, and a carefully determined percentage from our endowment fund. We're grateful to Treasurer Tom McInerney, whose astute guidance and dedication to the well-being of Sawmill River Audubon enable our ongoing work. At our March 2nd, 2020 board meeting, the last one that we held in person, new board member Suzanne Kavik was elected, and 7 directors whose terms were ending that month were re-elected to new 3-year terms. The current officers were re-elected for another 1-year term. Directors elected to terms ending in 2023 were Carrie Andrews, Ginger Bernardin, Suzanne Kavik, Ken Novenstern, Tom Ruth, Richard Cerve, Kathleen Williamson, and Debbie Fensell. The officers elected were President Valerie Lyle, Vice President Tom Ruth, Treasurer Tom McInerney, Secretary Bill Kellner, Board Chair Richard Cerve. I would also like to recognize longtime board member Joanne McCauley, who decided to step down from the board in March after many years of dedicated service. We will miss your presence on the board. Thank you, Joanne. Sadly, Ed Mertz, a valued and longtime member of Sawmill, passed away in January. He was an accomplished nature photographer and committed volunteer with us and other environmental organizations, and he left a generous bequest to help advance Sawmill's youth education work. During 2019 and before the pandemic shut down in March of 2020, our activities included weekly bird walks in local parks and weekend day trips to regional hotspots, monthly educational programs in local libraries, bi-monthly nature book club discussions, and a number of bird ID and other workshops. Many of these have now become online programs, including the book club discussions, monthly programs, and workshops. In early April, hoping to sustain our local birding community when we could not have group walks, Anne Swain began offering weekly online bird chats. These have been wildly successful. Attended by novices, expert birders, and everyone in between, they provide a sense of expanded connections, regularly gathering over 50 people for discussion, sharing of sightings, photos, and seasonal birding tips, and presentations by members of our regional birding community. Bird Chat will happen twice a month beginning in November. If you have not tried one, I urge you to do so. Beginning in June, as the effects of the pandemic and restrictions in our area eased, we introduced a series of small group, masked and socially distanced bird walks in local parks. We'll continue with these through the winter, but pre-registration is required, and once announced, they fill up quickly. Be sure to look out for our email blasts which announce new bird walks as they're scheduled for each season. In 2019, we reached over 1,000 students with education programs. Half of these were guided Audubon walks at Rockefeller State Park Preserve, funded through New York State's Connect Kids to Parks grant program. All of this is now, of course, on pause. We also partnered with the Rewilding School at our Britton Brook Sanctuary and the Chappaqua Friends Nursery School at Prime Sanctuary for forest preschool programs. SOMO members enjoyed 4 ecotourism trips, visiting Nebraska in April 2019 to view the sandhill crane migration, Chincoteague Island for fall coastal birding in October 2019, Trinidad and Tobago in November 2019, and Cape Ann, Massachusetts in February 2020 for winter coastal birding. Unfortunately, the pandemic interfered with our planned visits to Yellowstone in May of this year and to South Africa in November. Those trips are now queued up for 2021, when we hope the world will again be safe for such travel. We held our first and second annual birdathons in September 2019 and last weekend, with 7 teams competing in various categories, raising over $1,400. SMRA members also contributed to citizen science by participating in 5 area Christmas bird counts and a winter waterfowl count, monitoring winter bald eagle roosting in Verplanck, and volunteering to scout and document breeding bird activity for the 2020 through 2024 update of the New York State Breeding Bird Atlas. A dedicated group of volunteers staffed Project Feeder Watch at Croton Point Park this past winter, but this program has been suspended for the coming winter due to the pandemic. Our 8 sanctuaries and 2 native plant gardens saw heavy use this past spring and summer, providing refuge not only for the birds and other wildlife that live in them, but also for many people seeking beauty, solace, and peace in the midst of our turbulent and frightening world. Thanks to our volunteers and contributors, we've been able to maintain and even improve these important spaces this year. Second Saturday walks at Britton Brook Sanctuary, guided by board member and sanctuary plant expert Michael Mattias, have resumed, with masks and social distancing required. Pre-registration is not required for these Britton walks, though they will be limited in size on a first-come, first-served basis. The gardens at Prime, designed and maintained by board member Donna Lassiter, with the help of several volunteers, are open to the public from dawn to dusk. Under the direction of Vice President Tom Ruth, Sawmills Advocacy Committee has been quite active during the past 18 months as well, hosting a climate change boot camp in October 2019, where more than 100 attendees heard a presentation on the timeline and expected impacts of climate change, as reported in the UN's October 2018 report, and what steps we can and must take now to mitigate those impacts. Presentations by a panel of area community activists generated lively discussion. Our recent online program, A Bird's Eye View of Food Part 1, was the first of a series of 3 planned programs that will focus on the connection between food and the environment. It was attended by 68 people and featured a panel discussion by representatives from Stone Barn Center, Hemlock Hill Farm, and the Lincoln Park Community Garden in New Rochelle, as well as a greeting from New York State Senator Pete Harcum. A recording of this very engaging and informative program is available on our website. Watch for the next 2 programs in the series, planned for January and April. All of this would not be possible without the dedication of our volunteers, the support of our loyal members and friends, and the hard work of our board and talented staff Ann Swaim, Executive Director, Ellen Heidelberger, Office Manager and Historian, Danny Ferguson, who maintains our sanctuaries, and educators Pete Salmonson and Patricia Mutolo. We are deeply grateful to all of you for your participation in our programs, your volunteer work, and your financial contributions, which have enabled Sawmill River Audubon to survive and thrive in these very unsettling times. Be safe and remember to vote for the environment this year. The future of our wild places, our communities, and the planet depends on it. Thank you all.
Thank you, Val. I have a volunteer moment to share with you.
Mutual friend who is going on a Sawmill Audubon bird trip to Ohio for the spring migration. So she convinced me to go on the trip, and ever since then I've been doing bird walks, and I eventually got on the board, and from there I've been doing some more fundraising stuff for the board. I like it just because it gets you outside, enjoying nature. It gets you going places that you normally probably wouldn't go on your own. And birding with Sawmill, it just helps connects you with birds in ways that you would not be able to do on your own. And it's just great resources. So many good birders in the club. It's just a lot of fun to talk to people and interact and learn about other people's lives as well. So two things that I've been really involved with the past year is the birdathon that we just had. What it is a group of people go out, they bird, fundraise money, and it's a little competition as well. We see how many teams we can get and how many birds we can see in one day. So the past weekend was a big success. And then the other is the bird photography calendar. We have a lot of really talented photographers in our club. I reached out to them. We got some photos, put together a nice calendar, and it's for sale for 2021. So that's another nice way that we're fundraising for the club this year.
Thank you, Louisa. So it's my pleasure now to do some introductions for our Larry Light Youth Scholarship presentations. The Larry Light Youth Scholarship Fund was started by the Light family and friends in 1981. It's for students aged 13 to 17 to attend an environmental camp, workshop, or class. And since then, over 150 students have benefited. The scholarships are not based on financial need, although that's considered, but more about a student's involvement, both through schoolwork and extracurricular activities in the environment. I know that Jane and Tom Light, who are Larry Light's parents, are not able to join us tonight. I think David Light might be online, and if he is, we wanted to give greetings to the Light family tonight. Thank you for establishing such a legacy in honor of Larry Light, and it has benefited many students. After those greetings to the Light family, I want to turn to an introduction for our students that are presenting tonight, Eric Brodsky and Adam Vinson. Eric Brodsky is 16, studying advanced work as a homeschooler. He lives in Cortland Manor, and he has volunteered for 4 years with Sawmill River Audubon's Project Feeder Watch at the Croton Nature Center, also with Eagle Watch, and he's currently a trail walker as well. He's an active birder and also taken several Cornell Lab of Ornithology Bird Academy courses. He attended National Audubon's Youth Birding Camp at Hog Island in Maine last summer. After Eric, Adam Vinson will present. He's a senior at Roosevelt High School in New York City, currently president of the New York State Young Birders Club. Adam volunteers with the Wild Bird Fund, New York City's only wildlife rehab center, and is active with Audubon Project Safe Flight, the group that monitors New York City for birds killed or injured by window strikes. Adam himself collected hundreds of signatures and testified in front of the New York City Council as part of New York City Audubon's advocacy to pass the bird-friendly glass law. Adam will tell us about attending National Audubon's virtual youth birding camp this summer.
Hi everyone, I'm Eric, and in 2019 I was honored to receive the Larry Light Youth Scholarship from Sawmill River Audubon to go to Hog Island, Maine to the Coastal Maine Bird Studies Camp. Hog Island is an island in Maine that's been used by National Audubon for birding camps for teens and adults. And over the course of 5 days, we attended presentations and learned about birds and conservation efforts and birded. And it was a phenomenal experience, and I had a wonderful time birding and taking photos. And although my photos and this one with the rainbow, which isn't mine, they might give the impression that it was sunny all the time, I was wearing a winter jacket basically all the time outside at Hog Island, and it rained a good deal of the week, to the extent that one morning when we went on a trip to the mainland, we found that our vans had gotten stuck in the dirt turned mud parking lot. And we did get them out, but only after about an hour's worth of pushing and reversing. So you can see this is Hog Island here. It's really only a very short boat trip away from the mainland. So Hog Island has a good deal of history. It was donated to National Audubon by the previous owners of the land and of the island. And the very first Audubon camp at Hog Island was all the way back in 1936. And near Hog Island, Project Puffin was founded almost 40 years ago in what was an attempt to try and bring back breeding puffin colonies to the coast of Maine. And one of our Hog Island instructors was Stephen Kress, who was the founder of Project Puffin. This is a map of the coast of Maine. You can see Hog Island is over here. We did lots of birding on Hog Island and in Muscungus Bay, which are the waters around Hog Island. We also did birding in sanctuaries on the mainland, such as Damariscotta over here. Then there are 2 breeding puffin colonies also on this map. We went to Eastern Egg Rock during the camp, and the adult group that was also at the camp went to Matinicus Rock. And those are both breeding puffin colonies that have been restored thanks to the efforts of Project Puffin. There we go. So these are some pictures of birds from Hog Island. 2 notable birds here are the resident ospreys named Rachel and Steve. You can see they have a nest over here at the bottom right. And some of you might be aware that there is actually a live streaming this nest to the internet, and you can see the osprey pair raise their young. And there is a good anecdote from the camp that on one of the nights we went to do an owl survey, and one of the owls we were surveying for was the boreal owl, which is more of a lottery ticket than an expected bird to see. And when one of the instructors was testing the playback system the night before, he used a boreal owl call under the osprey nest and accidentally live streamed a boreal owl call in Hog Island to everybody watching on the camera. So I'm not sure what exactly happened, but I think that the people at Hog Island had to put up a notice that no, that was not an actual boreal owl at Hog Island. Um, these pictures are from Muscongas Bay, which are the waters like just outside Hog Island. There were lots of water birds like loons and this Bonaparte's gull and these cormorants here. One spot we went to on the mainland was the Great Salt Bay Farm Wildlife Preserve, which was a beautiful marsh filled with waterfowl and marsh birds. So you can see over here, we ran into a family of Canada geese with their little goslings. And this marsh wren over here was building a nest in the reeds and right next to the path. And there were way more than just birds in and around Hog Island. There were squirrels all over the island, especially near the bird feeders, and seals all over the bay, as well as lobsters and plants. So Eastern Egg Rock was one of the real highlights of the trip. So Eastern Egg Rock was historically a breeding colony of puffins that was wiped out by overhunting from humans. And puffins practice what I think is called birthplace fidelity, where when a puffin hatches, it goes back to nest to the same place that it was raised in, which makes it very hard for puffins to recolonize lost breeding areas. So in order to address this and try to bring back puffins to places where where their colonies had been wiped out, Stephen Kress in 1973 founded Project Puffin by bringing baby puffins, which are known as pufflings, to Eastern Egg Rock and raising them and hoping that they would come back to the island. And after lots of hard work and innovative techniques such as the use of fake bird decoys to try to attract puffins by thinking there were other puffins at the island, they were successful in bringing puffins back to the island, and pairs started breeding there in 1981. And as of 2017, there are 172 breeding pairs in the colony. And research is still done on Eastern Egg Rock today. When we visited, we went to the small only building on the island, which is a research station used by, I think, 3 or 4 people living there. And they research the birds and the wildlife of the island. So you can see that the puffins in these photos are banded. And this puffin over here is standing by a burrow that's labeled, and so they can keep track of the different burrows by number. So Eastern Egg Rock was a really good opportunity for photos because they stuck us in a bird blind in front of puffin burrows for an hour. So we got to saw the puffins flying back and bringing fish to the burrows. And there are more than just puffins on Eastern Egg Rock. You can see common terns over here. There were also Arctic terns and roseate terns nesting on the island. And all of the terns are very territorial, and they do not take kindly to humans walking anywhere near their nest. So you can see over here in the bottom left, a poor individual being attacked by a large swarm of terns. And we had these little pillow cushions that we put over our heads to protect us from getting stuck up. And another very big thing that we did was bird banding. at Hog Island. So we attended a bird bander, and we watched them set up the mist nets and bring in the birds and measure them, like this goldfinch wing being measured. And it was also a really good opportunity for photos. And these birds might seem very docile, but not all of them were, especially the hairy woodpecker over here and the blue jay were not having a great time. And yeah, so I would just like to thank Sawmill River Audubon and the Light family for giving me this opportunity. The camp at Hog Island was really an amazing experience, and I loved every second of it. I learned lots of things, like how to ID turns and why you shouldn't play rare owl sounds on a live stream. So
Great job, Eric. Thank you. But we want to go right on to Adam Vinson. Adam, if you're ready to share your screen. And Adam, again, is from New York City and attended the virtual youth birding camp this summer.
Okay, so I also attended Hog Island camp, but I did it in a very different way. And I would like to thank Sawmill River Audubon and the Light family for giving me such a great opportunity. And I'd like to thank you all for letting me present today. I didn't get to go to Maine, but I did attend Hog Island, and that's because I attended Hog Island virtual camp. So what is a virtual bird camp? I'm going to get into that in a bit, but basically this is a very unique opportunity for me because something about me is that I live in New York City, and our school year intersects with the normal Hog Island Audubon camp. I'd always wanted to attend, but I was never able to because I'd have school at the same time. So when I found out that Hog Island was going to be doing an online camp due to the pandemic, and it was going to be in July when I didn't have school, I jumped on the opportunity, and I was incredibly excited to do this. And I learned a lot, and I just had a really great experience. It wasn't exactly like what I'd be doing in Maine, but it was still quite amazing. So what a virtual birding camp entails is basically a group of people getting together online and discussing camp activities. So you might be wondering, how would this work? And how would you be able to have the camp experience when you're basically just doing a Zoom meeting like the one we're having right now? And one of the main things that you try to do and you try to get out of camps, especially birding camps, is to make new friends. How are you going to do that when you're just doing a Zoom chat? Well, it's quite simple. You divide everyone into groups. So there were around 20 people from across the country inside of this birding camp. If you can see the top photo on the left, that is of the eBird checklist for Hog Island Audubon Camp. And you can see Maine is in red, and that's because those are all the checklists from previous camps. And then you can see all of a sudden you got all these other states in different colors scattered across the map, and those were where everyone was from. These were checklists from our members and at the camp. So as you can see, certain areas have a lot more checklists than others. They're a darker color. There were quite a few people from New York. Eric was there. I believe that there was one other person as well. And it was a really fun experience. And basically, we were all divided into groups of around 5 people. And the image below the camp eBird checklist is my group's eBird checklist. We decided to name ourselves the Adequate Banana Kits because it rhymed. So as you can see, we had people from across the country, New York, California, Colorado, Texas, and Vermont. And I'm still in contact with a lot of these people. It was a really great experience. Our teams would compete in competitions to see who could see the most birds. I believe my group had the most, but I forget. We never really got to do that exact competition in the end. So this entire idea of birding with people in Maine and New York is a bit complex. And basically, how are we going to do this? How are you going to make a birding camp when people are just birding at their own homes? How are you going to make it exciting? And what Hog Island Audubon Camp Online did was they made us do patch birding. Basically, we would be focusing on a very specific area and we'd be birding there. Now, I spent half of my camp in Long Island and half of it in New York City. So spent the first half using the salt marsh as a patch, where I got to see some ospreys nesting and piping plover as well. And I did get to see salt marsh sparrow. I didn't get any photos though. And I spent the second half of it using Randall's Island Park as my patch, which is a really great birding spot. And I got to see a lot of birds, but some of my favorite photos were of this northern mockingbird and the eastern kingbird. You know, if I went to a normal birding camp, you know, I'd be going to all sorts of different wide variety of places, and I would be seeing a lot of new species, but this was still a very fun experience because I was getting to look at the places that I like to bird in a different angle. And even there, I got to see some new species for areas like salt marsh sparrow. I didn't have that from New York. So one of the main parts of a birding camp, one of the main allures, is learning from experts. Now, usually when you go to a normal birding camp, you'll meet with maybe 1, 2, 3 experts, and they're usually just the local experts. But what makes Hog Island Audubon Camp Online so unique is that we were meeting from experts across the country. Take, for example, we had Jenny Duberstein, who runs much of the Young Birder program for the ABA, who talked to us about field journaling. She's the one who's holding the red-billed tropic bird. We also had John Muir Laws talk. He's a very famous nature artist. He has a field guide, the Muir's guide to nature drawing and journaling. And I'll actually get more into what he was talking about with us later. We also had Dawn Lyons, the head of Project Puffin, of course, and Tyke James, who is the government affairs coordinator for the National Audubon Society. And he helped co-organize Black Birders Week, if you ever heard about that. And that was really fun because I'm interested in environmental policy. So we did more than just, listen to these experts. We, learned from them deeply. So I got 2 images right here. One of them is, some of my drawings from before I met with Mr. Laws. It's the one on the right, the left. And, as you can see, there's some good drawings there. Those were actually some of the better drawings on this piece of paper. The 5-striped sparrow, which is the bird with the head in a weird angle. That was made learning from him. But some of the other birds, they're okay drawings, but they're not great. And then on this right-hand piece of paper, this was a checklist I made the day after. And as you can see, to lesser blackback gulls, and as you can see, my drawing skills have gotten quite a bit better because of the tips that he offered. So these are some photos that I took of some of the stuff they were presenting. They spent a lot of emphasis on field journaling. Jenny Duberstein and John Muir Laws talked about it. The photo on the left and the photo on the bottom right are from Jenny Duberstein's presentation. She was trying to teach us about different field journaling methods, one of them which was the Grinnell method. I didn't take the photo of the method I used, but if you can see right here, for my journaling, I use a specific method where you list the species on one side and you put your important notes on the other and you put drawings around. And this top right-hand photo is from Fiona Gilligay. She is if you read ABA magazine, you might have seen her article. She got a 3-page article on her field journaling. She's one of John Muir Law's mentors and mentees, and she was actually one of the camp participants. So it was great getting to see her work and learning from her and seeing, where the experts are when it comes to field journaling and how you can take the tips from Mr. Law's book and, actually make something out of it. So obviously attending this camp, it wasn't just birding in your local area and meeting with experts. There were other activities we did. And one of my favorite activities, and the last activity we completed, was we made tern decoys. Fun fact about Project Puffin, who helps run Hog Island, is that they actually are one of the largest creators of tern decoys. If you see a shorebird decoy, there's a pretty high chance that they made it. They have a facility that makes them, and they sent us a bunch of unpainted tern decoys, and we got to make them. So I made a roseate tern right here, which was pretty fun. It's the size of a least tern decoy, so I doubt it will work, but it's just kind of a fun thing to have. And we got to basically not only do that, we got to also kind of diversify our interests when it comes to birding. One of the many things that we would do is after we had a speaker, we would try to implement into our birding whatever they had taught us. So for example, if we had someone who was very interested in audio recordings of birds, and we did, we would go out there to that day and we would have a goal of getting at least 2 audio recordings from 2 different species in our eBird checklist. And that was a really fun experience because I'd never really actually done that before. And it was kind of exciting, you know, going out to certain areas like a mockingbird nest or, you know, calling red-winged blackbird and holding my phone out and recording it and seeing what I could capture. So that's my presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. There's a lot more that I can go into, but you know, I don't have it in the presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Adam. That was great. A lot of nice comments. Adam and Eric, thank you for your presentations. It was pretty interesting hearing the contrast between the 2 camps and some of the common elements too. So we really were pleased to have you both presenting together tonight. Thank you. And for everybody else, if you know young students between 13 and 17, go to our website, sawmillriveraudubon.org, and you can read about the Larry Light Youth Scholarships. With our thanks again to the Light family and friends who have sustained the scholarship fund over the years. Let's go on to our next element. We actually have another volunteer moment, and then we'll be introducing our keynote.
So I'm fortunate to live in a home in Chappaqua that borders one of the sanctuaries. I border the Prine Sanctuary. And I've been here for a long time, but I happenstance was walking in the woods and stumbled upon the fact that I border a sanctuary with trails. And in walking through the sanctuary, I was able to end up at the main location of the Prine Sanctuary, where there was literature to fill me in on what the sanctuary was and the organization, Sawmill River Audubon, and information about it. And that inspired me through the years to just make some small donations of support and continue to enjoy the sanctuary and promote it to friends and family. Then in lovely 2020 with the pandemic, I, like many others, found myself with more time at home, and I was in the sanctuary more than I had ever been before. And it really inspired me to get more involved. So I contacted the executive director and wanted to increase my family's financial support, as well as offering my services when possible to be a volunteer. Subsequent to that, I've had the opportunity to volunteer on 2 specific construction projects in 2 different sanctuaries. And I wish I had time to do more because I found those volunteer opportunities to be rewarding and beneficial. And it's also fun to bring the family around and show them things that I participated in and that I've made my mark. And I hope to be able to do more participating with volunteer functions because I think the organization is fantastic and the mission is wonderful and it needs to be supported by everybody. People I run into are all thrilled that the sanctuaries exist and incredibly appreciative of having this access to us. I think that speaking to friends and family members, I constantly promote the existence of these sanctuaries, and I've heard feedback from people through the years, as well as this year, of visiting the Prine Sanctuary and just being amazed at what a gem is within our backyard. And in reading the history of the Prine Sanctuary, I'm just so appreciative to Dr. Prine and his wife that they had the foresight to donate the land. I appreciate the signage within the Prine Sanctuary, which fills me in a little bit about the history of it. And I think that everybody should be supporting these as well as other opportunities to preserve green space.
Thank you, Rob. Some good words from our neighbor and sanctuary volunteer. So I want to turn to our keynote now. Hey, David, I know you're online. It's great that you're with us. As Audubon's first Chief Network Officer, David Ringer oversees the health, vitality, capacity, diversity, and strength of Audubon's vast distributed network. And that's a network that includes hundreds of Audubon chapters, more than 40 Audubon nature centers, thousands of deeply committed advocates and volunteers, and a wide range of partner organizations. He leads Audubon's Bird Friendlies community program, which engages people in practical joyful solutions to protect birds in special places and to make healthy habitats for people too, as we always say here at Sawmill, healthy habitats for birds and people. He's also a leader in Audubon's equity, diversity, and inclusion work, and oversees Audubon's public relations and communications team. I was interested to read beforehand, he was serving on Audubon's National Communication Director, and before that, Communication Director for the Gulf of Mexico and Mississippi Flyway. And the significance of that is he was Audubon's frontline PR manager in Louisiana during the 2010 BP oil disaster. Served communication and media for NGOs around the world, noting 25 countries on 6 continents. He's worked as a web developer and biological technician. His love of birds began in childhood, and his connection to Audubon started in high school, much like our students tonight, when he joined the Greater Ozarks Audubon Society in Springfield, Missouri. And welcome, David, to Sawmill River Audubon's gathering. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a real privilege to be with you tonight. All right, well, let's dive right in. I just want to thank you all so much for all that you do every day. As was mentioned there, I get the privilege of working with Audubon chapters and student programs all across the country. And the volunteerism, the advocacy, the community support that all of you do every day is truly what makes Audubon special. So let's see here, there we go. So as was mentioned, I've been obsessed with birds since I was a little kid. And this is the bird, the painted bunting, that actually connected me to Audubon as a high school student, as you just heard. So there was a Greater Ozarks Audubon Society field trip to see painted buntings. And I'd seen this bird in the book, of course, but I never imagined that this was something real people could actually see. So to discover not only are birds like this something that real people can access, there's actually a whole community of people around birds who love them, who enjoy them, and who share them with others. So that was my introduction to Audubon through an Audubon chapter, the Greater Ozarks Audubon Society, and led me to where I am today. This is one of my favorite times of year, fall migration. I hope you are all having a good fall migration season despite the mobility restrictions from the pandemic. But I think about these birds that are dropping through our backyards and our parks and our sanctuaries every day during migration. Birds like the black-polled warbler here that stage on the East Coast and then often will jump off and fly for 3 days nonstop across the Atlantic Ocean down into their wintering grounds in northern South America. This is a bird that weighs as much of a couple of coins in your hand, and yet it's able to make this incredible multi-day journey across open water without stopping. So this just reminds me every time we come to this season how incredible these birds are, not only their beauty, their songs, and what they mean in our lives, but the feats that they can make during their migration and even just their daily lives. Now, of course, it's not a super easy time to be a bird, nor a human, I might posit. This is a clip from the New York Times last month. You may have forgotten, as I sometimes do, we all thought that the big story of 2020 was going to be the Australian wildfires that were roaring through that continent in December and into January. A lot of news since then. And then, of course, our own fire season here in the United States, and now fires roaring through Colorado as we speak. So these are hallmarks of a climate crisis, right? We know that fire is part of the ecosystems in the West. We know that suppressing it has consequences. We also know that the kinds of changes to our climate that are causing these record mega fires is something that is new and that is likely to continue. It's a hard thing to think about. On top of this, we also have a biodiversity crisis, the 6th great extinction underway. So birds are telling us that something is wrong, but we're seeing that in our own communities as well, right? Whether we're exposed to more frequent storms, whether it's hurricanes, whether it is fire, we know that all is not well, and it makes it a hard time to understand really what we're doing and where we're headed. And unfortunately, we're not making good choices as a nation right now in the face of all of those challenges. One of the things that the current presidential administration has been most dedicated to doing is taking a wrecking ball to decades of bipartisan legislation and administrative precedent. Despite all the chaos and daily headlines, one of the things that's been happening every day consistently is chipping away at our public lands, at our clean air, at our clean water, at our hopes of reining in a climate crisis. So, it'd be one thing to be facing the challenges that we are as a nation and as a world if we were meeting them with competence and good faith. But unfortunately, that's not what's happening. So if you go to the audubon.org homepage right now, you can actually read this article about many of the rollbacks that the current administration has tried to put in place and what their odds might be of sticking. Fortunately, there's a lot of victories that are happening in the courts. So here's where I'd like to turn the page a little bit from the challenge that we all know we're facing to why it's so important to be a part of a network like Audubon and what we can do about these things together. As you heard, I was working for Audubon down on the Gulf Coast when the BP oil spill started back in 2010. So I saw scenes like this. This was a scene in April of 2010, one of the brown pelican nesting colonies off the coast of Louisiana. And you just see these birds packed into such a small space, kind of jockeying for position, but more or less getting along and preparing to raise the next generation of pelicans. But then as the oil started to come ashore, I saw scenes like that turn into scenes like this. These are my pictures, things that were very hard to witness, but baby roseate spoonbills completely covered in oil, brown pelicans oiled, and on the far right there, it's a little hard to see, but that's an entire colony of royal tern chicks, all of whom were oiled and died, hundreds of baby chicks. Now, why am I bringing this up? Well, 2 years ago, the White House decided to try to take a wrecking ball to the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. So the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, as you all know, I'm sure, prohibits the killing of birds for any purpose, whether you meant to or not. And because of that law, BP was liable for $100 million in fines that have been used to help restore bird populations and bird habitats across the Gulf and beyond. But the administration decided, we don't want that in the way of industry or of more oil and gas production or of anything else that may be inconvenient. So they issued an opinion that said, we're not going to enforce the law anymore. And National Audubon Society, along with many partner organizations, sued the White House and said, you can't fly in the face of the text of the law and decades of bipartisan consensus on how the law should be interpreted and applied. This law has saved entire species from extinction. Some of you may have been at the New York Chapter Council meeting 2 years ago when we talked about the whole history of the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. So for its 100th birthday, the administration tried to do it in. But just back in August this year, a federal judge, Valerie Caproni, handed down a stunning decision in favor of Audubon and the birds that we're fighting to protect. So all of you, as Audubon members, as chapter leaders, you have a role in this victory. And I loved what the judge said in her decision. It is not only a sin to kill a mockingbird, it is also a crime. And her words were very strong. Unfortunately, the Trump administration has decided to appeal that decision and continue on with their rulemaking process. So the work is not done, but we certainly did have an exciting win in August, and we'll certainly carry on that work. Now, here's another thing that some of you may have taken action to help support. So there's a world-class salmon fishery in Alaska, and there's a mine that's threatening that fishery. So Audubon has mobilized almost 40,000 people to make comments opposing this mine. An extraordinary, probably some of you were part of those 40,000 people. And just a few weeks back, the US Army Corps of Engineers said, you know what, we're gonna put a stop to this project. So again, this one is not done. The industry executives and the investors who are trying to push this highly destructive multi-generation project through are going to keep up their work, but so are we. And we see what happens when we come together and say, no, we have to protect the precious lands and waters that our communities and our birds depend on. Here's another one. So as some of you may recall, after decades of bipartisan consensus that parts of the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge should be permanently off limits to oil and gas drilling, this administration came in and said, we're just going to undo that with the stroke of a pen. We're going to start trying to drill in the Arctic Refuge. So Audubon and many partners, including indigenous groups in Alaska, sporting groups, lots of other conservation organizations, were part of a massive lawsuit to protect this. And for those of you who have been Audubon members for a long time, you know that this is a battle that keeps coming back. We fought it in the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s, and this is the latest front. But this is where birds that winter throughout the lower 48 go to breed in the nesting season. And it's vital that we continue to fight together to protect these places. Here's another one that I hope some of you saw, because I know that many of you have worked on this project. So the Atlantic States Fisheries Commission recently decided that menhaden, which is one of the most important fish in the Atlantic Ocean, needs to be managed not only as a human fishery species, but also for the ecosystem value that it has for birds. So we were just hearing about Hog Island and the puffins that have been restored there. Menhaden are very important fish for the puffins, for the terns, and as they grow, for larger species like ospreys and bald eagle. So the Fisheries Commission heard from thousands of Audubon members, and many of you also wrote into your members of Congress, participated before the pandemic in in-person lobby days, and after the pandemic in virtual lobby days. And just last month, the commission said, we have to manage these fisheries in order to let the fish grow and mature, increase their numbers, because they have deep value for an entire ecosystem, including many of the birds that depend on them. So 3 years ago, 2017, when Audubon started this fisheries campaign, this was by no means a sure thing. Unquestionably, the engagement that folks like you had over the last 3 years with elected officials and with the commissioners resulted in this win for the fish and for all of the birds and people that depend on them. So we can do this, even against extraordinary odds. When terrible decisions are being made, there's still a way to come together and move forward and improve the future for birds and for ourselves. So you've probably seen a version of this map before, but this is us all across the country. More than 450 Audubon chapters. The new Audubon on Campus program continues to blossom. We're on more than 150 campuses right now from coast to coast, and working very hard in this virtual time to keep students connected and engaged. And that all adds up to almost 2 million members. Our membership is growing, and I believe that we'll be at 2 million members by the end of next year. So just an amazing network of people like all of you who are so deeply committed to your communities, to birds, and to a future where we have a livable climate, plenty of clean air, clean water, and healthy natural habitats for not only birds, but also our communities. So I want to have a couple of encouragements for you. I know that there's a lot that's discouraging, so here are a couple of encouragements. And the first is this: shine your light. I don't know about some of you. I grew up in Sunday school. That was a long time ago in more ways than one, but we had this song about not hiding your light under a bushel. And that's something that I want to encourage you to think about in your work as Audubon members, Audubon chapters, local conservationists, and educators. Sometimes our heads get down because we're busy doing the work or we're discouraged. But don't forget to let folks know what you're doing. Don't forget to put your field trips in the newspaper, or to write a letter to the editor about the stream cleanup that you're working on. Don't forget to contact your elected officials and tell them, hey, I'm doing my part for our community, for our birds. I have an expectation of you that you'll do your part. That sense of expectation for our elected officials, regardless of political party, is so important. They need to understand that Republican or Democrat, independent or something else, our expectation is that the environment is not a partisan issue, that it's a core value for Americans, and we see that in public polling time and time again. So shine your light, let folks know what you're doing, why it matters to you, and what your expectations are of them. This is the Audubon Action Center that you can find on audubon.org. I know that many of you are very committed and frequent advocates, but some of you may be newer, and I want to make sure that you know this is a resource for you on the website, whether it's the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, the Arctic Refuge, some of the things I talked about tonight. You can go there and find ways that you can take action and make a difference. So shine your light. Second encouragement is to include all people. We can't do this alone, right? We know that we need a broad coalition across political parties, across generations, across race and ethnicity, across different faiths. None of us can do this alone. And so doing it together, I was very encouraged to hear some of the presentations earlier. So I know that Sawmill River Audubon is a leader in reaching out, including people, and bringing more folks into the work. So keep that going. Thank you for what you're doing there. So let me leave you with this. Regardless of what happens in the election in a couple of weeks, Audubon has a proactive plan to make sure that we keep pushing forward and winning victories for birds, for our communities, and for the environment on which we all depend. Whether we know that the most lasting change is going to come when we have bipartisan legislation or other kinds of wins that are going to be hard to undo in the future. And so across these three areas, tackling carbon emissions, protecting and restoring lands and waters, and advancing bedrock bird protections like the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, we're going to keep fighting. We know that you'll be with us. As I've tried to show in a few minutes here this evening, your advocacy, your support, the conversations you have with your neighbors, with your elected leaders, with corporate leaders, all are part of the solution. What you're seeing here on the left, by the way, is a virtual youth environmental summit that we held in August. And we had college students from across the country Zooming in and meeting with elected officials, networking with each other, and creating change in their communities and beyond. So this is what we're committed to. You know, we'll have to find out what happens in November, but regardless, our mission is clear. The areas in which we're working are clear, and we know that because of you, that's all work that can continue. So with that, what I wanted to do is close by reading a few words that I wrote in Audubon magazine this spring. It was the 10th anniversary of the BP oil spill. Hard to believe as someone who was there. But as I thought about all of the challenges facing us, as I thought about the potential that we all have together to make change, I wanted to put down some words in the magazine that helped us think about where to go from here. So here we go. In the Gulf, the best funded environmental restoration initiative in world history is underway. Cause for great hope. More than $20 billion, if you don't know, going to ecosystem restoration. Cause for great hope. At the same time, our government is slashing environmental safeguards with abandon, even the venerable Migratory Bird Treaty Act, which defended all those birds in the Gulf and held BP financially accountable for its harm. By now, we know very well that human economic and social well-being depend on a clean and healthy environment. In such challenging times, we must boldly reimagine how we will relate to that environment and to one another. I imagine that as a society, we could build a set of environmental policies and practices that lift up every person, not just the most able or fortunate or powerful, and certainly not just those of one favored race or class. I imagine we could be brave enough to treat every other human being as fully equal to ourselves. I imagine too that we could build those environmental policies and practices in a commitment to the innate worth and independence of all species with whom we share this planet, from brown pelicans to bald cypresses. I imagine that we could value their lives beyond the utility they lend our own. These are not primarily scientific challenges. They are choices of morality, of politics, of faith, of will, of accountability. What do you choose, and what are you going to do about it? So I know what many of you are doing about it. Again, thank you so much for your support. Keep up the great work. It's an honor to speak with you tonight, and with that, I will turn it back over to you.
We have another volunteer moment to share with you.
When there was a special Zoom session for that, it was something run by Sawmill, so I went to that. I like the sound of it, and it's also really beneficial that I live something like a 10 minutes drive away from Brinton Brook, pretty close to lots of other sanctuaries. And then I started doing it, and it's lots of fun. It's really nice to walk around and check on the trails, and it's also really good for birding. I'm not going to pretend. Interesting bird species I've seen there have been a worm-eating warbler and gray-cheeked thrush, which were both very exciting for me. But yeah, I think it's been mostly good birding, just all the time. Maybe it's not as crazy as Croton Point or someplace, but I don't think I've ever really been disappointed by the birds there, and it's fun to watch them.
We agree. Good job, Eric. And we agree that birding is fun too. So as we come into the conclusion here, we have sort of an interactive challenge for you. Really bad bird pictures. We invite you to play along, Larry and Steve in particular. David, you're welcome to chime in.
And I'm going to first of all start by saying really bad bird pictures means that I took bad pictures, and these are not necessarily bad pictures. These are challenging pictures. All right. So I just want to make sure you guys can hear me.
Yep.
Okay. First one, this comes courtesy of Carrie Andrews, board member. So she took this photograph, and I don't know how you want to do this, Anne. I'm assuming you and maybe we'll put Larry on the spot, right?
I think Larry has to speak now. Larry, are you unmuted?
Unmute yourself, Larry.
And Steve? And anybody else who wants to play too?
Okay.
It's a sparrow.
Oh, well done. Guys,
Well, I was going to say you can see from the background.
Well, there's a
where it
face
was
pattern.
taken,
You can see
so.
the face pattern here.
I got a face pattern going on here too. We don't know what this bird is, folks. Okay.
I could be
Anybody else wants to play?
Vesper. I don't know.
Thoughts in chat too. What were you saying, Larry? Sorry.
Vesper? Just because of this face pattern, but a chipper? I don't.
Yeah,
Not a chipper.
It does look
Too
like
big in the back,
a
right?
big sparrow to me.
Tail is
It's like
long.
the white.
Someone say this was a really easy one. I looked at the photo and knew immediately what it was.
Well,
Yeah, am I seeing some yellowish by the lures?
Da, 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 da.
it's a Savannah. The tail is a little short. I was going to say that the tail is a little
Here's the
short.
yellow.
There we go.
Oh, Lord, I hope the others are better.
That was the easy one, right?
Oh, it's downhill from here.
Okay.
Yeah, somebody else guessed way through it. You're right alongside us here. All right.
This is not a sparrow.
All right. Yeah, I'm good on this. I'm seeing an eyebrow. I'm seeing yellow in the primaries, yellowish green on top, white underneath, little gray cap. I got an idea. What do you think, Larry?
It's either a red eye or a Tennessee. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd go with red Iberia.
Yeah, red eye.
Da, 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 da. See, these are the easy ones, right? This one's a little more challenging. This one was a bad photo, right?
I actually feel pretty good about this photo off the start.
I thought there was a lot of good information in this.
Anybody else in chat want to play on this one? You can jump in. I think I have an idea what this guy is already. There's no eye ring, big yellow breast, got some wing bars. It's one of the warblers we saw quite a bit of. Yeah,
And location. If you have a look at the the kind of tree in the background, maybe that I thought was a good clue as well.
yeah, I think Phil has a guess that I'm with. Somebody else said pine. What do you think? We're not hesitating to make fools of ourselves. Oh, Adam is winning? How's Adam winning? Adam, what did you say? You can speak, Adam. We don't...
I said pine.
Oh, look at that.
There we go. And funny, I took these two right after each other, right?
Nice.
All right, so this one is, again, there's enough marking on here to...
Okay.
What I don't understand is why didn't that get deleted?
Yeah, why didn't you delete these back?
I will actually tell you that I went back into the SD card and I pulled the photos because I had the after photo and I'm calling these the before photos. And
Okay.
I don't delete them off the SD card. So I
So
did go back.
Eric has already named this. So we're seeing a short-tailed kind of chubby warbler here up there in the Japanese Angelica Rockefeller, probably, right? Or you?
Yep, that was at Rockefeller.
Yellow breast, little bill.
Mm-hmm.
He's already said Phil's on Perula too. Okay, yeah.
See, yeah, there's some nice.
Perula. Some people
There
like
we go.
that. There's a nice view. Heads up now.
Depends.
Much nicer. Much nicer.
Okay, this is the challenge. This is a nice challenging one I've thrown in there.
Not so much, actually.
I think it's got, for me, this is something that I learned about the bird this year. And there's something really obvious about this bird that's right there.
Anybody want to
the distinguishing features?
jump in on this?
Larry should be able to do this one.
Got some big rusty shoulders here. This is another, what you got? Adam, you can jump in if you want. Or anyone else? California condor. That's a big swing. Swinging for
they've got rusty shoulders, right?
Swinging for the seat. Somebody said fox because they're liking that rufous color.
No, that's just a patch. It's not, and the fox would have something out front.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is a trick one, but I actually think that quite a few of you would have seen one of these. Can I show the ID?
Sure.
That's a dick sissel.
Yep.
I had to do it. You know, I can't just do it. This dick sissel was at Stony Kill.
Oh, okay. It's not Bonnie's dick sissel then.
No,
right?
it's not Bonnie's, and it's not the one that was down at the farm either.
Okay.
No,
Cool.
Bonnie's got a lot of yellow on it.
Yeah, hers was actually prettier
Yes.
than yours. Just saying. All right, guys. Anybody got a swing for this? Oh, Andean condor. Yeah, you've amended your response. That's clever.
So again, I can't see what's in the chat. So
Yeah, I'm looking at it. Somebody's saying yellow rump. Well, there is yellow, but I think it's on the other part of the bottom there,
it's on that's on the wrong part.
which is
If you
characteristic.
look carefully there's a bit of white over there on the eyebrow.
Mm-hmm.
Can I go?
Yep.
A beautiful
so
little
much-
palm warbler. Sorry, I did cut the tail off a little bit in the after photo, but it's just.
Yep.
such a
Somebody
pretty
jumped
tail.
in on that in chat. Oh, there's another
This-
tail.
This is a challenge one. This is a tail. So after the bird chat where you had Tom Stevenson on, and he was talking about how the undertail of every warbler is pretty much unique. I've started not discarding those photos now, and I'm using them with his warbler guide, and this is exactly what it looks like in the warbler guide. So
Go figure.
this is a warbler. I will tell you that this is a female. She looks different to the male. And there's one other thing that's actually quite diagnostic on her that you can actually see vaguely in the photo. To give you a
I'm kind of looking sideways, hoping that's, if I look sideways at the picture, maybe I can actually.
This is one of the tougher ones, right?
Anybody got something in here? Oh, somebody's saying Colima warbler. Wow, we're going fantail. We're swinging for the Southwest here. I
So
think
here's a little. There's something over here. There's a
it's a
little
pocket
white-
handkerchief.
There's a pocket handkerchief.
There it is.
There we go. Right.
Yeah.
So that was one of the toughest
And
ones.
Larry came right in there. Okay. As we wrap up here.
Bonus ID. I've got a couple of birds here. There's just two here.
I can't see a bird.
Well, therein lies the
Here's the
challenge.
eye. Here's the eye. Here's kind of a tail wing
So you
bar.
can see, and there's some yellowish tinge to the bird over here.
Fun. Yes, indeed.
And I think I got one more.
All right, last one, guys. If you want to play, if you want to consider some of the
I
challenges.
thought there was actually again, I've used warblers because we've just been through a whole lot of them coming through, and I think a lot of us went and looked at them.
Mm-hmm.
So this one has got some good diagnostic features, which I thought showed well in the photograph, as much as the photo is a bit blurry.
That nice
Yeah,
mossy green.
What do you think?
That nice mossy green.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us what else you're noticing there, Steve? What you would name?
ID characteristics, the white outer tail feathers.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you that my after photo does not show the white in the outer tail feathers. I don't think.
Adam is saying chestnut sided.
Nope.
Yeah.
And
Oh.
there's the face.
There's the face.
No, believe it or not, that was actually the bird that was actually the black-throated green that went into the tree, and that was the photograph of as I got him as he flew to the next tree.
Well, wait, maybe one bird went in and the other came out. We've had that
No,
happen.
that was him. Trust me, it was him. So you can actually see how nice that white there is, and of course he has these lovely wing bars. So
Yeah, and that color. They're both, wing bars and the tail spots.
That's
both.
it.
All right, guys, cool. Well,
Mine is over.
Thanks for setting those up. It gives you a little, you're not playing. It gives you a little sample of what we go through in bird chat sometimes. So we just thought we'd throw in that interactive element as we come to our conclusion for our birding quilt raffle. So to do that, what we need to do is spotlight Carol Tom. Somebody can spotlight his box. There's a quilt behind you. And Carol, you have a previous birding quilt on the wall.
Yes, I do. Isn't that beautiful? Can you see it?
The quilt maker is right here.
That's our.
All right. We want to give thanks to Patricia Loquette. Let me just mention.
Patricia, can you see your quilt? I can see it. Good.
So Patricia made this year's quilt for us, and we're about to draw a drawing here of who won the raffle. Let's pull it out.
Carol's going to pull one out.
Yay.
Good luck, everyone.
Good luck, everybody.
Well, if I had my glasses on.
Oh, boy. Jay, Larry, you sold it.
Oh, good.
Oh, Banuelos.
Banuelos.
Oh, good. Somebody in his office. Good.
Oh, very
I
nice.
sell the most tickets. Somebody should win once in a while.
That works. Oh, thank you, Tom and Carol. And thank you, guys, if you want to clap or wave, thank you to Patricia for this quilt, which has raised money. And thank you for Tom and Carol for the drawing.
It was very hard. Quite welcome, too.
That's great. Very good. All right. So let's come into our conclusion here. And we're really glad for this. In alternate years, Jean Sparrison has made some wonderful quilts. This year's quilts you can see has a hummingbird and floral design. And I'm sure that the winner will be absolutely thrilled to receive it. Thank you. All right. So we're going to jump out here to a brief finale like we do at our dinners.
Yep.
So thank you. We're still connecting people with nature because of your support, because of your involvement. We encourage you to connect with us this fall and in through this challenging winter ahead. And thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for gathering with us.